Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine, a.k.a. Mo Domino. That's a new nickname I have. There's really no need to know why that's a new nickname I have, but just know that if anyone refers to Mo Domino or Morrison Domino, that's
Or Mo
me.
Domino.
Or Mo Domino. Now, I'm delighted, of course, to be joined by, as you've just heard, Jon Mackenzie.
Joe Domino.
All right, how's it going?
Good, thanks.
Kaynak's here
Hey,
too.
Mo.
Also, producer Ryan Hunn's here.
Hello, Joe.
How's it going? You okay?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, I'm very well because we're recording this after quite an exciting end of a game. We're recording this in the near immediate aftermath of Ecuador's 2-1 win over Germany. I will say we're recording this before the Japan and Netherlands games later, and obviously the USA's group as well. We don't know the results of those games. We don't know the results of those groups yet. We are going to try and talk about permutations a little bit, but we will probably look silly by the time that people listen to this tomorrow. Now, what do we talk about on today's show? Well, Ecuador came back from 1 goal down to beat Germany and secure qualification to the knockout stages. We talk about that. We start to try to get to grips with the permutations of the round of 32, as I said. Probably not that successfully, but we're trying.
And Joe got quite nervous, didn't you, Joe?
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
Well, there was suddenly a moment where I was worried that we might have to play Ecuador as England in the round of 32, and that did scare me, I have to say, having watched their performance against Germany. We play a Rondo hosted by a producer Rye Guy, so I get to participate. Very exciting. Is it my first live Rondo? Maybe not. Maybe I've done a couple before.
You've done some on the live streams we do on Sunday.
Sure, you'll find a way to rig it.
Good Lord. Honestly,
It's coming in hot.
Where has this sass come from? Now, what else? Scotland lost 3-0 to Brazil last night. And also Ecuador's result today wasn't great for their chances of qualification in third place in their group as well. So we talk about that too. And I've got a little quote from Jon earlier. In that section, Jon, I think you described that as one of the worst coached games you've seen so far at the World Cup. So I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later on. South Africa also surprisingly beat South Korea last night and also secured qualification for their first ever time in World Cup history. I think they drew Canada in the round of 32, so that'll be an interesting game. And we check in on points are bad as well. So that's about all in the show. Did I miss anything, producer Ryan? No, it's a big shaking of a head there. Now, later, someone will add music to the audio version of this podcast. Yeah, there we go. There was the music. Now, where else to begin, of course, than Ecuador 2-1 Germany in the New York, New Jersey Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Ecuador responded to an early German goal by defeating the group winners 2-1 to secure qualification to the round of 32. Ecuador currently the best ranked third place team. Oh, it's a mouthful,
It's
isn't
so
it?
hard to say that.
They're currently the best ranked third placed team, so they top that little group of 8. And things could change, obviously, over the course of the next few days, but that's because they have 4 points and a better goal difference than Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are second ranked there. And what else? They joined Germany and Ivory Coast in getting out of Group E. Ivory Coast also beating Curacao 2-0 in their game. We talk about that a little bit less because we had it on sort of in the background. And that game also just finished. Now, as a starting point, Jon, I'll come to you. Is this more, do you think, of the Ecuador that people were expecting before the tournament began? Because, prior to this game, I think I'd basically just written them off after the performances in their first two. They hadn't scored in either of them, and they were coming into this game to face the group leaders, Germany. I certainly wasn't expecting this to happen, but they really upped their game tonight.
Yeah, I think with Ecuador, what we've been talking about them in the run-up to this competition is that we have described them as the Arsenal of international football.
That's true, but we've described many teams as the Arsenal of
true,
international
yeah.
football. It's hard to keep up with how many.
But what I meant by that when I said it was that they're a team who try and keep goals low in games. And I guess one of the downsides of that approach is that if you don't score, then there's a likelihood that you will lose your game, right? And that's what happened with them in the Ivory Coast game. They were unlucky in the Curacao game not to score despite putting up a lot of chances.
Yeah.
Obviously, Curacao goalkeeper had to have a good performance in that game as well. But that's the reality, right? Is that if you're a team where you're looking to win 1-0, you have to score that goal or you have to not concede because then the game plan is somewhat negatively impacted. So I think this game sort of forced them to have to come out and play. They were pretty aggressive, I thought.
Well, you noted that they went man for man.
Yeah, they
Had they done that in the previous 2 games?
No, they were definitely much more. I think aggressive in their press. They sort of did the Bielsa thing. I think their coaches maybe been influenced by Bielsa, so it's maybe not that surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they did go for it a little bit more, and they had to get a result, and impressively they did. But yeah, I think they will take that as a confidence booster going into the tournament, especially because they had to come into the knockout stage of the tournament because they had to come back in from a goal down. I think they've shown that they are going to be a dangerous team in this competition, right? They have the ability to play in those transitional moments, and we will talk about Germany, but in many respects, Germany struggled a little bit with their intensity and with the relative physicality of the German players versus the Ecuadorian. So yeah, and really nice to see. It's nice to get to the business end of the group stages because it felt like for a while that we weren't ever going to reach here, but it's nice to see these kind of upsets happening because this is what the tournament is all about, and to go into a game like this needing to get a win to go through and
with some jeopardy, which we were worried that we wouldn't have.
So it's nice to have that.
Absolutely. I mean, Kaya, as it stands, and I emphasise as it stands because it's more likely to change than not. As it stands, England would play Ecuador in the round of 32. Now, as I said, we don't expect that to happen, but as it stands.
Yes.
The reason I bring this up, given that it's likely to change, is because as soon as I heard that was a possibility, I actually got a bit scared.
There's a real change in your demeanour, yeah.
I really don't want to play Ecuador in the round of 32, despite some poor performances in the first 2 games, because of what I saw today. I feel like that's a fair enough reaction.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't want to blow my own trumpet too much, but in a piece for the Athletic, we were asked to pick players and teams to watch for the tournament, and I did name Ecuador because they're a team that I don't think anyone will want to face in around 32, and I think a lot of people were kind of surprised that they came into this game needing a result in the way that they did. I think a lot of people assumed they would be able to beat Curacao, but the fear with them was always, can they score goals? And it was, I think, the second Germany scored this evening, we were always all of us in this room, and John was in the cupboard by that point, but all of us who were in this room were saying, God, their task is looking almost impossible now because they have to score 2 goals. But when it gets to knockout football and they can play those fine margins and play them so well and defend so well, and they did have a decent threat on the counter-attack this evening as well.
It was frightening.
They're a team that no one will want to face. They're a really difficult team. They perform really well in South American qualifying. They've got some really good players. And as we know, some fantastic defenders in, Pacho and in Capier and Ordóñez, and some really good players at the back. So they're a team who play with a lot of emotion. You saw that in the way the manager was, jumping up and down the touchline, jumping up and down the stands as well.
Into the stands,
yeah, which is great. But they're a team that I don't think anyone will want to play in the next round at all.
Yeah, okay. A couple of things to address. One, if you heard reference to John in the cupboard there, that's the tactics cupboard, where he watches the games in silence. And the reason that matters is because we were live streaming during the game. If you haven't joined us for a watch-along so far, you're very welcome to do so. We're doing that throughout the rest of the tournament. Point number 2 I want to raise, I can hear Canadians saying, if Jesse Marsh was climbing into the audience, then we'd be complaining about it. I just want to point that out. And the third thing is also to say, we talked about the notion that Ecuador had threat on the break. I think they did so even into the death of the game when they were already 2-1 up. The thing that really interested me about it, and maybe this is where we can transition into talking about what to expect from Germany, is that even 2-1 down, okay, perhaps the incentive to win isn't there. It's not necessary for Germany. They still win the group regardless of what happens. But even at 2-1 down with 5-10 minutes to go, the game still feels like it's not being controlled by Germany. And I think that's the thing that surprised me so much today. There weren't even really periods outside of the first 10 minutes where I felt as though Germany had control of the game. That's made me look at them slightly differently, thinking about how they'll progress through the tournament, John.
Yeah, potentially. There definitely are concerns with Germany. We've been talking about them through the whole tournament so far. But for me,
the top 3.
The top 3 what?
Concern number 1 with Germany.
Concern number 1 with Germany is, I guess, physicality. It's what I've been talking about all day today.
You said that they just weren't that much of a match for Ecuador in terms of their physicality.
I think so, and it feels as though if a team comes up against them and is intense and goes man to man, they don't necessarily have the players to be able to solve those issues. which I think is worrying because the game, as you say, did feel quite modern, right? In the sense that what we're seeing in the elite European game in particular is like a collapse of the consensus that possession control is the best way for the best teams to play.
Mm-hmm.
That's not as true as it used to be. If you look across the last 6 or 7 seasons, before the last 2 seasons, the teams at the top of the table were all putting up over 60% possession comfortably, and usually you could correlate quite nicely having a lot of possession with probably winning the league or being in the Champions League spots.
Yeah.
The last 2 seasons, that's pushing 70% possession at the top end, and then teams at the bottom having 30% possession has squeezed right down. So now the teams at the top are struggling to consistently put up 60% possession, and the teams at the bottom are now up to your 40s, and the gap is narrowing between those things. And what that results in is a game that is a much more chaotic game, right? Which is why we spent a lot of the last couple of seasons talking about the rising physicality of the players that we're seeing in the Premier League in particular, because you have to be able to compete physically if you were to be able to compete on any other level in the league.
Thing number 2, goalkeeper, potentially, at least from today. I mean, Kai, you kind of mentioned that you thought that Neuer had a pretty bad game.
Yeah. I mean, he's been not, I'd say, at his best this year. There was obviously the controversy around the goalkeeping position in Germany because of the fact that Neuer wasn't involved in the qualifying campaign and was sort of called up in the last minute to be part of the squad, and has been controversially Germany's number 1 ever since. And I think there are some people who think that's a little unfair on Baumann, the backup goalkeeper, who was the qualifying goalie throughout the campaign. And Neuer's come in and didn't look great tonight. Should have come and dealt with the goal that Ecuador scored, the second goal, where he's waiting for it to come into his hands and Plata is able to stick a boot out. And there's that thing with Neuer where there's been instances as well in the Champions League this season where he's looked a bit off. So yeah, it's a point for Germany where it's one of a few that John's outlined, but they won't feel as confident as they have in years gone by when they've had one of the best goalies in the world without really any question.
But I think you can go through all of the positions in that starting 11 and none of those players are really at the level that you would want the top level teams to have. Like, where is the like they've got great players across the board, right?
You argue Florian Wirtz, although he has not had a very good season.
I think a lot of people would push back on that, right? And if you were to then say, well, let's take France for example, where they've got Desiree Doué, they've got Dembele can play there, can play Barcola there, can play Elise there. They just don't have anyone in that sort of sphere, and then even at, in the back line now, it's kind of we're talking like Jonathan Tah, we're talking Nico Schlotterbeck, who I think is a fantastic player, but again he's been plagued by injuries in the last couple of seasons.
He's now injured out of the
midfield of again Pavlovic. I like Pavlovic. Sure. Pavlovic. I think the Nemec has had a good tournament, but like they just don't have those difference maker level players right now.
It's not the vintage Germany.
Musiala, I think, had the capacity to be one of those players.
Sure.
Had that bad injury and hasn't come back to the same level. So I think that's the difficulty. Is like, yes, agreed on Neuer. Like, there should be no way that the best German goalkeeper is over 40 years old at this point. But then I think you go through every position on that team and you say they're having to work really hard to cover up weaknesses because there's no really well-rounded players who are game changers in any of the positions they have.
Well, it's worth saying also, I mean, you said let's take France as an example. I think it's
unfair.
No, it is unfair, but it's also relevant and the operative because as it stands, Germany and France could meet each other in the round of 16, the last 16, because the winner of Group I will be playing against third place Group F. Blah, blah, blah. My point is they're in the same part of the bracket. So unless if Norway beat France in the game tomorrow, then that would be Norway. Assuming that France win that game or draw with the superior goal difference, it's more likely to be France. And we know that Germany will be where they are in the bracket. We're just not certain who'll be facing them. So I think it's maybe it's not fair to judge squad depth of any team against France, but we might as well, given that they're very likely to meet each other.
You can also do that against any of the other teams in that top tier. Your Spain's, your England's as well.
Yeah.
Your Argentina's. These are the teams where actually, if you look through it and you try and compare position to position, yes, of course that you wouldn't take every one of those teams' players over them, but like there's just very few where you feel as though there isn't that level of difference making. And we mentioned it on the stream as well. It was like, okay, they struggled against Ivory Coast. The reason they got out of that game felt like it was because Nagelsmann made changes that allowed them to generate structural solutions to those problems. They have to do that because they don't have individual solutions to problems, which is contrasted with a lot of the other teams we've been talking about in the last few days, where we're talking about your Messis, your Ronaldos, but also your Vinicius Juniors, right? These are players who are able to turn something out of nothing, and that's a really useful thing to have as a team. You don't feel that Germany have got any of those at the moment.
I love that you've started to do that in the last year. You never used to do
your
that.
Messis, your Ronaldos.
Your Messis, your Ronaldos, you know.
I quite like it. It's quite a nice
like it as
turn of phrase.
I like to hear you do it now.
I like it when people do it with things that you shouldn't do that for. Though,
your John Deeres, your other types of tractor maker.
Or just like...
Can you name another tractor manufacturer?
Massey Ferguson.
Really? That's really a tractor manufacturer? You could have said anything and I would believe it. Okay, fine. Could you have named another one, Ryan?
JCB, a tractor maker?
Oh, yes, possibly.
Bamford, that is, isn't it? It's the Bamford family, JCB.
I don't
The B
know.
stands for Bamford.
I'm jumping a gun on the Rondo here. The Rondo is different.
Yeah.
I hope it's not because I've used some of my best tractor names already.
A quick shout for Ivory Coast before we get to the break and the Rondo, who beat Curacao 2-0 to go through second, level on points with Germany, but they lost out obviously in their head-to-head. Also worth saying that Ivory Coast will play the second-placed team from Group I, so that will either be Norway or France, which have exceptionally tough fixture either way, although I'm sure Ivory Coast will be hoping for Norway there. But we will have to wait for the outcome of Group I, which will be tomorrow, to determine those two fixtures. Now, let's have a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to play a Rondo. And Don, can you make... James, can you make a time code there as well, just so that I've got something to send to producer Nathan later? Fantastic. And we're back. Okay, now I'm particularly excited today because I get to participate in the Rondo. Now, I hear you asking, what's a Rondo? And I hear some of you saying, you explain it every single day at the moment. I'm going to explain it again. A Rondo is where today... producer Ryan asks a question that has multiple correct answers, and we go round in a circle. The rest of us, we give correct answers. If we give incorrect answers, we are rejected from the Rondo. If we dither or dilly-dally, or producer Ryan simply doesn't like our attitude, he can eject us from the Rondo himself. Won't be a problem for me because I have a spiffing. And also, if we give an answer that's already been given, we'll be ejected as well. That's often the way. That's often the way. The final person standing is named Rondo Del Rey, which will be tricky because we're all sat down. Am I right, guys? Am I right? Anyway, what's the category today there, Ryan?
Because Germany played tonight.
Oh no, you're just biasing towards John already. No, go on.
No, the top 20 German goal scorers in Premier League history.
Oh,
Okay.
And they're all very gettable.
Okay, well, can we start with me?
I'll start with Joe.
Mesut Ozil?
Mesut Ozil is the third
Wow.
with 33 goals.
Okay, that's not promising.
33.
Jurgen Klinsmann.
Jurgen Klinsmann, 29 goals.
Kai Havertz.
Kai Havertz, 43 goals.
Where did Klinsmann come in the list?
Klinsmann was fifth. Kai Havertz is
Okay.
currently second.
Andre Schürrle.
Andre Schürrle is in there with 17.
Great.
Shout.
Okay.
Pascal Gross.
Pascal Gross is there.
How many goals does he have?
He has 31 goals, so more than Jurgen Klinsmann.
Okay.
What did Klinsmann have?
29.
And he was...
He was fifth.
He was fifth.
So Pascal
so
Gross
we're
is
talking
fourth.
like
Andre
actually
Schürrle.
quite...
Andre
not-
Schürrle though was
He was 17 goals. Kind of. I think he was 11th.
Okay.
I can't see it.
okay. Skyers?
Ilkay Gundogan.
Ilkay Gundogan is
Third.
the top
Oh, top.
Yeah.
German
Yeah.
goal scorer
Yeah.
with
Wow.
45 goals.
Michael Ballack.
Michael Ballack is in there, 17 goals.
17.
Yep.
What ranking is
It's
that?
the same as
He
Schürrle.
was, same as
Scored at
Schürrle.
the time.
No. What was that? What was Schürrle? I'm trying to work out if there's...
2, 3,
Ryan, don't
4,
fall for
5,
this.
6, 7, 8.
Is there players below
They
it?
were 11th and 12th. So
Right.
they're joint 11th.
Right,
And we're doing 20.
Right.
I think
Take
we might have
charge,
to.
take
Might have
charge.
I'm
to.
going to do
Might have to
Antonio
count you
Rudiger.
down.
I'm going to do Antonio
Don't
Rudiger.
Antonio Rudiger is the 20th with 9 goals.
Wow, the bottom player. Okay.
Leroy Sané.
Oh, of course.
Leroy Sané has 25 goals and was. I
can't think of
that's
any
6th
German
or 7th.
players.
7th. Some still playing in the league.
Oh, Per Mertesacker. Per Mertesacker didn't score 5 goals.
There was 9.
No, it's 9.
Oh, 9.
Remember, it's just
Hang
league
on,
goals.
let me do that again. Per Mertesacker didn't score 9 goals. He was there for years. What a faker, man.
Joe Devine,
What
you
a
are out of the
faker.
Rondo.
How about that? Hey, it's my debut Rondo. I get a second guess, don't I?
It's not your debut,
your debut, Rondo.
You
You've
jog
Rondo
on.
There are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 left.
They were so concerned that I'd stay in for a little bit longer.
You only got
That
9.
was their reaction. Huh?
John's been time wasting a lot.
Yeah, he has.
Come on, John.
I wasn't time wasting in the last one. I was
You're
merely-
time wasting now.
I was finding
Say a
ways
name.
of doing it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Say a name.
Christian Ziege.
Christian Ziege, 14 goals.
What?
It's in there.
What?
He was so worried he was
What?
going to go out on the same as me then. He was so worried.
I don't care what happens now.
What?
Okay, Kaya.
Timo Werner?
Oh,
Timo
Timo
Werner
Werner's a good one.
is in
Despite
there.
never scoring
12
I expect
goals.
He did
Yeah.
score more than 9
Yeah.
goals, yeah. He only scored 12 goals.
It was at Spurs for a bit
bless
as
him.
well.
he wasn't there for very long.
He was at Chelsea
Chelsea
and
for 2
Spurs
seasons.
combined.
Oh, yeah, I
but,
forgot
like,
that he was at
Yeah.
Chelsea.
he definitely should have scored more than 12 goals. I think that's fair.
It's not a clue, but there is one that you will kick yourself
Oh,
if you
no.
don't get.
That's a clue.
It's not.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, no.
Bastian Schweinsteiger. I remember him being very prolific in his Man United period.
I should know. So that's a Freiburg player who moved. Oh, it's not. I mean, it's Robin Koch. It's not Robin Koch, is it?
No, it's not.
It's
Robin.
not Chalos.
He's
No,
out. He's
you're out of the Rondo, John.
Charles and just Turkish anyway.
No, he's
Over to you, Kaya.
Kaya,
You can get it, Kaya.
to be Rondo Del Rey.
2 in my head. And I'm not sure which one to go for.
Just say one of them.
I've got one that's a forward
hmm
and one that's a defender that was there for a really long time.
I say go for the forward.
I'm going to go for the defender.
Always trust the forward.
I'm going to say Robert Huth.
Oh,
Robert Huth is in there with
Yeah!
21 goals.
21.
he was
21.
there for so long.
Wow.
The other ones you could have had,
Can I say what the forward was?
Go for it.
Lucas Podolski.
19 goals.
Yeah, okay.
Podolski's a
The other ones you could have had,
Who's the
Emre
one that was-
Can,
oh.
10 goals.
Emre
Dietmar
Can, the
Hamann,
German man.
Dietmar Hamann, 12 goals.
Dietmar, yeah.
Thomas Hitzelsberger, 10 goals.
I saw him on the street.
Vitaly Janelt, 10 goals.
Forgot about that guy.
Karl-Heinz Riedler, 11 goals. Uwe Rosler, 29 goals. And Kevin Schade,
Kevin
21
Schade.
goals.
I don't. You know, I don't feel that bad about that. I think, with the exception of Thomas Hitzelsberger, I don't think I would have got any of those. So, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Kevin
That's
Schade
the,
is
that's,
the one.
that's the main thing.
That's the main thing.
Kevin Schade the one you thought
Yeah.
I should have got, yeah.
There you
He was
go.
barely at Freiburg, to be fair. I think he had like 500 minutes in total.
I don't think I don't think the close-up was on you, Kai, when you were doing your cheering. Would you like to do it again? So the
Worried
camera.
about
That's
what
your
it looks
camera.
like now.
Yeah, there you go. Congratulations, anyway, to Rondo Del Rey, Kaynak. Well done. And continuing the round of applause, a lovely Rondo
Thanks,
preparation
guys.
there
Yes,
by
thank you.
Rai Guy. How about
I'm
that?
just glad I finished above Joe.
Yeah, much better than last time. That first one was terrible. No, good job. Now,
That was the BBC's fault. But
what's up next? What's up next? It is. Oh, now, of course, let me just adjust my tone slightly, because what's up next is very tricky for some listeners. Of course, I'm thinking some people who were on this podcast, not here today, but here at home. Scotland 0, 3 Brazil. Now, Scotland fell to a 3-0 defeat at the hands of a bit of a lukewarm Brazil last night, leaving them in 3rd place in Group C with by all accounts, well, it was before today. I don't know what it is actually since Ecuador's victory, but before Ecuador's victory, it was they had a 38% chance of making the knockout rounds in 3rd place spot. The goals helped Brazil to win their group, and they'll meet second place team in Group F, so that will be Netherlands or Japan. The listeners to this podcast later will know who that is, but we don't know as it currently
I think
stands.
Scotland's chances have dropped to 7%.
They dropped significantly.
It's dropped that low.
Okay, so yeah, we now think it's significantly unlikely that Scotland will feature in the knockout stages at all. I trailed this a little bit in the intro, John. You'll recall earlier you called this the worst coached performance you've seen at the tournament. I think there's a very specific reason for that in this game, though. And actually, we made a video that people can watch that will be out on the Athletic FC by the time this podcast is properly released, where you talked about specifically why as it relates to this game. But for Scotland in this game, and then we'll take a step back and talk about them more broadly. What happened? How did they concede 3 goals, and how did they not score?
Yeah, I would just start by saying I did think that Brazil did some really nice things in possession. I was quite critical of their out possession, and as you say, we talked about that in the video. But Scotland, I think, irredeemable on both sides of the ball, really. Not least because they did their best to put Brazil in a commanding position early on. The first goal obviously coming from a build-up mistake from McKenna, and then there was the Jack Hendry mistake as well, which actually turned into a foul and was turned over.
Yeah.
But
on that one though, I will say, I don't think that chance is ever created if there's no foul. I think Hendry is passing the ball back to the goalkeeper without the foul. That's not a problem. It's not something that we'd be looking back at later and thinking, oh, there was another mistake or another potential mistake. So I don't like that.
Yeah, although again, I think that you could, and we did go through that situation in the video as well. So check that out for a little bit more. I think essentially there was the scenario was that Scotland had a really easy escape from that situation and didn't find it, and then put themselves under pressure.
Yeah,
even the foul notwithstanding. But yeah, I thought Brazil out of possession were poor, and I think a better team will take them to task for that. And Scotland really didn't do that. They got into good positions and they didn't make the most of it, which I think is disappointing. And especially because when you look at some of the players that were on the pitch, and we talked about Scotland taking risks in this tournament. If Steve Clarke took any risks yesterday, it's that he went back to his quote-unquote more attacking lineup, potentially, with
Scotland manager.
Scotland manager. So playing Scott McTominay higher up the field again. You've got Ben Doak on the field as well, and just didn't feel as though there was any kind of coherent idea about what they should be doing with the ball. And had that been there, as we've said, I think Brazil might have been there for a little bit more of a skewering. But disappointing, I think, for me, the Scottish sort of route through this World Cup, because it does feel as though they've done the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And they've almost approached the tournament with like posterity in mind. So saying, we beat Haiti, we were just and when you look back in the future, people will say, well, they got 3 points, but they just didn't have the right goal difference. But we know that that's what it's been about from the beginning of the tournament, right? I think that Kai, we talked about this at the time, but looking back on that Haiti game, that I think it's not a surprise at all. It's not to expect Scotland to maybe not take anything away from games against Brazil, against Morocco. But Haiti were there for the taking in theory, and I felt as though Scotland's approach in that game and performance seemed clearly to not be what was needed at the time.
Yeah. And so if you look at the Haiti-Morocco game, you could maybe, if you're Steve Clarke, justify why he didn't feel opening up, particularly at 1-0 later in the game, was the way to go, and chasing a second goal, etc.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I think you have to try and go for it and get the goal difference. And it just
they also sat deep from near the beginning.
Yeah,
of the game.
and
like, Haiti controlled that game.
Yeah. And I think tactically, maybe they tried to be a bit more adventurous by going with 2 strikers and doing what they'd done in a few warm-up friendlies before that. But it's kind of felt for me when I've watched Scotland that the occasion has got to them a bit, the players. They've been making uncharacteristic errors. In that game, they played very defensive. But also, I think the tactics have been largely quite defensive. It's when you play like that against Haiti, you then leave yourself vulnerable to losing you need to go into the Brazil game needing to not lose by a significant scoreline, which when you're Scotland against Brazil, it can happen, and you probably realistically should expect it to happen, or certainly make a contingency plan for it. So yeah, 1-0. I remember talking to JJ when the draw came out, and I was saying to him, like, you must be pretty happy with that. I mean, you beat Haiti relatively convincingly, and try and get a point against one of the other two sides. It's not terrible.
No.
And yeah, the result against Haiti, when I it was overnight, so I didn't watch it, but when I woke up and I saw it was only 1-0, and I've watched the game back since, but it's kind of felt like that was a missed opportunity, and that was their chance to certainly stamp their authority on the group. And then you go into those next games with Morocco, where everything isn't on the line, and you don't feel like every kind of individual tiny mistake matters as much, as has been proven to be the case of the error early against Morocco and the error early against Brazil, where they've made individual errors, but if they'd been more front-footed in the first game and gone for a bit more, they maybe would have been able to get away with them. So, I kind of feel, and also I think they did, as John was outlining, on the ball, they did a lot of kind of dumb stuff. I mean, maybe it sounds harsh, but they moved the ball around so slowly around the back, and there were so many chances where if they just had a little bit more tempo to their play, or a little bit more quickness in their passing from the back, Brazil was so exposed and left so many spaces that players like Bengan and Doak could have exploited, like Andy Robertson could have exploited going up the wing. And in the second half, they did it a little bit more, and only a little bit more. And they still created some really good chances. Like McTominay had a header that forced Alisson into a good save. There was a header towards the end where Alisson made another good save. And that's all they had to do to create chances against Brazil. And, Brazil, 5 stars, etc., you expect them to be, the gap to be a lot bigger. But it really wasn't. And Brazil were ahead without really doing anything by half-time. The second half there, I thought, were a lot better. But yeah, that missed opportunity against Haiti, I think, has made them nervous in the games afterwards. And I think if they look back on this and they go out, I think they kind of have themselves to blame. As much as the draw was difficult, they will have themselves to blame a bit as well.
Quick one for you, Ryan. Just on the format of this World Cup, with 8 of the 12 third-place teams going through, is there a sort of devil's advocate position here where you could say the teams that go through in third place on 3 points, that got 1 victory expected from their group, and then, kept their goal difference low, there's a few of those teams that they will be considered smart teams and that they did the right thing. Whereas for the few that finish on 3 points and then don't go through, they're the ones that will just draw the attention of people looking to criticise that approach. And it could be a bit results biased one way or another. Is that a fair devil's advocate argument for Scotland?
Yeah, maybe. I think that I think the performance in the opening game was more worrying. Like, everyone we spoke to, even like JJ, was just saying, look, the result was fine, but the performance didn't really take they couldn't take a lot from that into the other games. I think that it's looked like teams who have been a little braver or really made they might not have even got like a win, but like a really positive result and performance in that first game seems to have like set them up for a little more. I think the thing is as well that when you have that many teams go through to the third in third place, it's hard to kind of say really what is the good way to do it or what is the bad way to do it at the moment, because my gut feeling is that maybe it's making teams be a little less brave occasionally, because they know that they don't need to do too much to potentially get through.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Scotland are probably a clear example of that so far.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Well, let's talk about just Brazil briefly, John. They won the group. Obviously, they haven't thrilled so far. They will play the second-placed team in Group F in the round of 32, which will be Japan or the Netherlands. And again, listeners to this podcast will know which team it'll be by the time they're listening. We don't know quite now. I think they could struggle against either of those teams, though, on current form. But you were impressed by them against Scotland.
Yeah, I think that, they went into this tournament with that first performance against Morocco, and then they tweaked things around, they changed things up, and Ancelotti did Ancelotti things, and this is very much Brazil in the mould of Ancelotti now, where he sort of made smart changes in terms of the way that they approach. It's always going to look a bit laissez-faire, out of possession, I think, and given the players that he's playing, I think that's a problem. So again, in the video we talked about Vinicius Junior is a weak spot. You put him in the front line, and that's you're reducing that weak spot. You're putting him in a good position in possession if you win the ball back and then you attack, because he's going to be in that front line. But also you have to be aware that teams are going to probably bypass your first line quite easily if he's going to be there. And then Casemiro, who doesn't cover space really well at this point in his career, and so they've had to make decisions which negatively impact them from a structural point of view. And his teams sort of roughly do that. They all sort of have a basic structure. They often are quite sort of passive. They'll sit in a deeper block and then look to be transitional team. He's very good at coaching that out of them. But I think in the past, and people will say, that's what he does. He gets results. Champions League, no one has as good a Champions League record as him. Probably won't ever in history unless something strange happens.
Well, you never know. Jose Mourinho's back at Real Madrid now, John. So don't speak too soon.
That's true. I take that one back. But the reality is that Real Madrid team had players who can find solutions. And I
had Kroos and Modric.
Kroos and Modric, yeah, Benzema. These are the kind of players who were able to do that on a consistent basis. I don't think that this Brazil team has those kind of players here. There are players in that team who the team sort of feels quite patchwork, and you've got centre backs playing a fullback in the opening game. You've got older players in those fullback positions as well. If you're playing a 4-4-2 diamond out of possession, it requires a lot of certain players in certain positions, and I don't think they have those players. So I think that they'll be exciting to watch. I think they'll produce some really nice stuff with the ball. But for me, I'm just a little bit nervous that I think the level that the game is at now, you have to be able to control the game on both sides of the ball. And I just think that smart teams will find ways of pulling their defensive approach apart, which isn't to say that they can't go all the way in the World Cup, because they are going to be a moment's team. They are going to score goals, and they are going to be well set up with Ancelotti to be able to overcome those sorts of scenarios. But yeah. I do think now that the very best teams are they are stacked with talent. They also have the ability to get more out of that talent through collective tactical ideas as well. It's going to be much harder for them to play the way that they're playing now and make it to the final and win.
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about South Africa, South Korea. Okay, we're back. What a fantastic break that was. South Africa won. 0 South Korea. Now, South Africa clinched a huge World Cup victory over South Korea early this morning. Just checking. Yes, it was still this morning. In 6 minutes' time, I would have had to, on the fly, change the copy I was reading. You could have seen something magical professionally, but alas, no opportunity to do so. Of course, that result helped South Africa leapfrog South Korea in Group A to confirm a second-place finish, which was quite the surprise based on the results so far. Maseko scored the winner for South Africa, who will play in the knockout rounds for the first time in their history, where they will meet Canada, another host nation. So they will play two of the hosts. Very exciting. Now, this is quite interesting. Of 22,000 people who guessed in the Athletics Sock'em Picker game, Sock'em Picker game, yes.
Sock'em good!
I really screwed that up. This is the Pick'em game on. I haven't mentioned this, although I've been playing it in the background. On the Athletic, there's a Pick'em game, which is quite an American name, but it's quite a fun game. Where if you're a subscriber, you just get to pick like the team that wins or the outcome, so draw, win, loss, one way or the other. And the aim is to build streaks over a period of time. So the fun thing about it is if you haven't been playing and you're a subscriber, you can just start now because there's still more than enough games left to build a streak over a period of time. I am doing abysmally badly. It's very upsetting. I'm doing much worse than I am in Points Are Bad, which we'll come to a little bit later. Yeah, that's very exciting. But so of 22,000 people who guessed for that game, only 2% of people predicted that South Africa would win this. Quite the surprise.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I think those 98% of people were pretty fair in their predictions, given the performances South Africa put up in the first game. Obviously, in first couple of games, In that first game, they were not particularly impressive against Mexico, even when it was 11v11. They got caught out playing from the back quite a lot, and then were exposed and had those crazy number of red cards that obviously defined that opening game.
That was the game where all the red cards.
That's the one.
Of course.
Second game, they were a bit better. But they were up against a very poor Czech Republic team,
right? Who
have offered very little in this tournament. Have gone out quite meekly, and other than set pieces, don't have too much about them. And they got a late draw courtesy of a penalty. And to be honest, throughout that game, they kind of looked as though their tempo was a bit off. They weren't approaching it with the urgency you'd expect. And South Korea had not necessarily been particularly amazing themselves in the first couple of games, but they have a strong team. They have players playing all over Europe, whereas the vast majority of the South African squad play for the top two teams in South Africa, but in South Africa. And there was a bit of a surprise going into the game because South Korea chose to drop Son Heung-min. It wasn't apparently injury related. They just chose to drop him. If it was a decision to rest in the hope that maybe the rest of the team could go and get them through to the round of 32, it was certainly a bold play.
Very dangerous type of rest defense.
Very dangerous type of rest defense, exactly. Particularly with so much on the line for South Korea. And Son hasn't been great for them and hasn't been great in club form recently. Hasn't scored in the MLS for a long time. Has been played up front for South Korea rather than on the left wing, and there's been a big sort of source of debate about whether that's the right thing. But, you know, whether dropping him led to the instability or not, South Africa took advantage and were quite impressive. They probably deserved to be even further ahead when they got their goal. And they had a bit of discipline about them. They play. So we were discussing this with John earlier that because so many of their players play for the best two teams in South Africa, they're not used to playing kind of underdog football. They're not going to try and grind out and sit deep and defend. That's not the way they're going to approach. We saw it in the Mexico game. They're going to team who are going to try and play out from the back. They're going to try and play what I suppose you would say is domineering football. They go out with a bit of a swagger to them, and I think that's surprised a lot of people because a lot of people would expect them as underdogs to go in and just defend, but they're not going to do that. And whoever they get in the round of 32, they're probably going to go and approach it in the same way, and that may be to their downfall because we've seen when they come up against opposition who are in form or maybe offer a bit more of a threat than South Korea did. We can say last night still, I think, just about rather than yesterday morning.
Just by 1 minute.
Just by 1 minute. That's perfect.
Incidentally, we know that they've drawn Canada in the
Canada. So I think even with how well South Africa played in that final game, Canada will be, I think, quite pleased with that round of 32 draw. But you know, Canada themselves have I think South Africa will be relatively pleased with that as a draw. So it's an intriguing matchup that, and whoever gets through to round of 16, I think their World Cup will be viewed as a massive success. It's kind of a weird one where now it's so possible. If they don't make it through to round 16, whoever doesn't make it through will kind of maybe view it as a little bit of a disappointment.
Missed opportunity.
But getting out of the groups is a huge deal for South Africa. And for them to qualify even was very impressive. And they had a really good qualification campaign. And they're here now. And fair play to them.
Well, also, if they've improved every game, imagine how good they'll be by the final. They'll be the best team in the world.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Exactly.
Now, a quick note for people who are watching us, joining us live. Japan, Sweden, and Tunisia, Netherlands is about to kick off. So if you want to go and watch that, please do. We are just going to chat a little bit about England, and then we're going to play some points of bad before we wrap things up here. So, John, you failed a late fitness test ahead of the England-Ghana game. In many ways, I think you picked a good day to miss. I kind of wish I hadn't watched it also. Happened a couple of days ago. You weren't here. I wanted to give you the opportunity to give any of your thoughts. I know you watched the game from home. What did you take away from the game and from England's performance?
Yeah, it's funny because I think, instinctively after the game, my takeaway was England aren't going to be coming up against many teams who are going to do this. Therefore, it's not too much of an issue. But I don't know, as time has gone by and I've thought about it and I rewatched the game, I guess the takeaway that I had was I was actually a bit disappointed that England found so few solutions to that kind of problem. Not least because I think that, well, on the one hand, in the knockout rounds, I mean, there's the potential they're going to come up against Ecuador, right? Who, as we've said, are a team who
really
like
tough
to reduce the amount of goals in games.
Yeah.
So despite having got through the game against Ghana and there's a game against Panama coming up as well where you'll say, okay, maybe in those games there'll be a low block that you have to break down. There is still the possibility that, and after Ecuador, it could be Mexico, who, again, I think would play that kind of football. Now, England, the argument would be, well, they didn't concede goals. They didn't look like they were necessarily going to concede goals, certainly after the referee had finished with the game. And so the idea would be, well, you can get through those games and win penalty shootouts or whatever. Two things. One, that's quite risky, but the other thing is you're drawing out the amount of time that you're playing if that's the approach that you're having. And I guess then it sort of raised questions for me because we've been very positive about this squad and certainly positive about the games where they are able to attack space. Right, the Croatia game was a good game and it showed that there is chops to Thomas Tuchel's plans of how to play in those later games. But I do think that it I don't know, it just sort of revealed maybe early on in this tournament that England may have weaknesses in that area if they are having to break down a block. And it doesn't have to be a low block, right? It can just be a good team sort of not committing as much as they might.
Yeah.
And I thought that the squad is very much built in that direction. There were potentially possibilities to bring in players who just offer something different. And I know we can argue about all of these players, and I think there's weaknesses.
Can I ask you about the argument?
Yeah.
Because the debate that JJ and Carl had on the show was eventually resolved by them both agreeing that they should have brought, what's the name of the Forest player?
Morgan Gibbs-White.
They should have brought Morgan Gibbs-White. Initially, JJ was claimed that Phil Foden was exactly the kind of player that would help break down that team. Carl thought that actually Kobbie Mainoo was the player that should have been brought on.
Yeah, and look, I think Phil Foden, if you have Phil Foden in that sort of situation, yes, I think he's basically, we're talking about pocket players, right? They played Declan Rice in the pocket and he didn't really offer much. They played Jude Bellingham in the other pocket, and again, like, he was dropping out quite deep to help him build up, and it meant that Noni Madueke got quite isolated, and so it felt as though he was not being used to the best of his ability. On the other side, you've got Anthony Gordon, who is an out-to-win runner in behind, rather than a guy who's going to front up a fullback and go either way around them, right? Yeah. Now, obviously, Bukayo Saka, when he's fit, will be doing that role and will be fine doing that role. But I think that two things. One is, yes, if you put someone like Foden in, he's a profile who will offer something there, right? It might not be the best profile that there is in the world there. He's coming off the back of a fairly poor season. But I think the issue there for me is you've got to get someone in those scenarios who can actually receive on the turn and is creative enough to do something there. That's not who Declan Rice is. So
is it who Kobbie Mainoo is?
Kobbie Mainoo is a different player, I guess. But I think, again, he would offer something there.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is not which of these players is the best one, or is this player an elite standard at doing this thing? It's just simply, do you have players who can operate in that kind of role, in that kind of game? And I think for me, there isn't the sort of straight up player that you would put in there. But there's also the worrying thing for me was that I was like, there are solutions in this squad to that. So, for example, Nico O'Reilly didn't start the game. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because for me, Nico O'Reilly is great doing that pocket stuff, right? We've seen him do it, right? He basically sits in that pocket when Jeremy Doku is there, baits in players towards him, and then makes the seam run between the fullback and the centre back into the byline. Can also receive on the turn. He plays as a midfielder. Yeah, I think that he's great. Playing him there is great. Then the worry is, okay, what about defensively? Because O'Reilly isn't a fullback.
And Jed Spence made a couple of really, really good defensive plays, running backwards to thwart Ghana's counter-attack.
And I think that's the reason he was in the team, right? Because I think Tuchel is worried about rest defence against Ghana. And I think that's just too negative. Whereas actually what you could do is you could play Declan Rice, don't play him in the pocket, use Nico O'Reilly as a fullback, have him in the pocket, and then have Rice covering Nico O'Reilly in a deeper position there. Because what you're doing is you're saying in this phase of play, Nico O'Reilly is going to be better here than Rice. And in the same phase of play, Rice is going to be better where Nico O'Reilly is than Nico O'Reilly is. Right. And so what you're doing then is you're just sort of taking the profiles and you're thinking in terms of the different phases and saying we can essentially play Rice as a left back out of possession or covering that space, and we can get O'Reilly into the pocket, and you're already finding, I think, better solutions out of this squad as well. So I think all in all, I was kind of like, yes, it sort of made me question whether or not they could have done more with the squad and just, maybe had a Foden in there, just because there may be scenarios where they're like, we just need someone who's got a bit of creativity. Same with Cole Palmer, although people will argue he didn't have a huge amount of creativity last season. But again, my argument would be you've just got to go for profiles rather than form all the time, because I think if you were to do that, you would never end up with the right profiles necessarily. Yeah. And then the other thing is, I was a bit disappointed that Tuchel seemed more concerned about rest defence concerns. So Ghana hitting on the break, which they didn't really do a huge amount of times, rather than generating because as I say, you can still have that rest defence concern, but why not do it with the players where you're actually offering better solutions in those different phases, rather than just saying we're going to have 5 players behind the ball, 5 players on the ball, and it doesn't really matter if those players are suited for their roles. We're just going to go with it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think the most interesting thing that you said there was the notion of picking players for profile over form. If that's the case, I'll have Alan Shearer. Am I right? Hey? Yeah,
That's fair.
It'd be good, wouldn't he? Now, there we go. There was a little bit of England chat for you. One thing we want to do just before we finish off on tonight's episode is check in on points are bad. Now, there's so many games every day at the moment. There are 6 games within a grouping currently. We're not going to sit here and go through predicting all of them. In fact, we took almost the entire second half of Germany-Ecuador to do that. Finally got
We had
there.
great fun doing it, though, didn't we?
Oh,
Joe?
so much fun, John. So much fun. I can tell you, as it stands, the gaps are growing to be even between all players. So kind of remarkably, JJ in last place, 142. Then Kaya in third on 130. Then me in second on 120. And John just pushing out in front on 111. So you've expanded that gap to 9 points now. I think largely through cheating in the dark arts. I won't go into the lengthy conversation we had during the live stream, John, where I essentially accused you of only picking scores that are 1 point ahead of me at time to stay ahead. So what I will say is that long-time listeners of the show will know that usually the way that we do this is we order the picker by the form as opposed to the class,
Profile.
as it is, the profile. So what we've been doing so far, because there have been so many games and we've been live all day, it's been really hard to work out the maths on each individual day as we're going, and I forgot to build that into the sheet. So we've just been picking based on the overall leaderboard, which has meant that, we've had to wait until the last minute every day because JJ always forgets to pick his team, that John's always picked last, which on the one hand you would think is a difficult thing because 3 other good scorelines are already taken. On the other hand, the reason that we brought in the form rule in the first instance was because it transpired that if you're first and you're trying to stay ahead of second, John isn't doing this, but one can simply pick a scoreline that is just 1 away from the
He
first
definitely
and
is
second.
doing that.
I think picking first
He's doing it a little
is
bit.
definitely advantageous. But when you have
Picking
more,
last, you mean?
when you're picking first,
Picking first.
but when you add more players to that, it ceases to be the value of being able to pick whatever you want reduces because
Yeah.
and the value of knowing what everyone else has gone for increases, and so
Sure.
it gets to a point where actually it's unfair. What we should probably do is the person who's last to go first and the person who's first to go second, and then snake it that
I
way.
don't know, because then you just get to pick good scores.
Well, I mean,
This is the trick of the game. So what we're going to do it based on the form. I'm going to work out tomorrow. We've already picked our scores to tomorrow just to make sure that we get ahead. And we'll go through a couple of those now. But I can tell you, as it stands, I've had the worst day so far. I've added 4 points just from these first.
So
2
by your
games.
new rules, you're going to pick.
Well, no,
First?
because there's 4 more games of the day.
Okay, just checking.
You're constantly looking at how I'm rigging everything. My God, you're the least trustworthy person I've ever
I've
met.
seen what you've done in our EAFC games on the live streams. That's all I'm saying.
JJ impressively got a perfect prediction for Curacao versus Cote d'Ivoire. Nobody else. We all otherwise added just 1 point on that, and then everyone added 3 or 2 on Ecuador. Looking ahead to the rest of the day, there's a lot of people thinking that Japan will get past Sweden, although the expectation is that there will be a lot of goals in that game. Perhaps that's something to do with Sweden's performances so far. We've picked already for tomorrow as well in Norway, France. Everybody except me has said that France will win that game. I've just got a funny feeling that Norway are going to win. So I've got Norway to go 2-1 in that game. Uruguay, Spain. Everybody thinks Spain is going to win. I'm the only person to say Uruguay will even score a goal. And then I think the one that was the most interesting for pickers was Egypt-Iran, which is the last game tomorrow. That game it very much matters for the outcome, but also a draw, I think, is an acceptable result for both teams, and both teams could still progress. So I've gone for 1-0 Iran there. JJ's got 2-2, which I think is actually quite a good
draws are
prediction for that.
hard in this game because we can't go for 1-1.
We can't go for 1-1.
0-0 is actually really bold because
Yeah.
you very quickly add up.
Well, that's how I added so many
Points.
points today, because I went for 0-0 on Ecuador, Germany, and then a
Yeah.
simple 2-1, you add 3 points, right?
Yeah.
Anything specifically that you'd like to call out of your picks for tomorrow, John?
I've gone for Netherlands 4, Tunisia 0, which was bold, and it proves that I'm not simply trying to get one more than Joe.
That's for the game that started 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, absolutely. You also went for Saudi Arabia to beat Cape Verde by 1-0 as
Yeah,
well, which I think is
yeah.
interesting.
I was just going to say the Netherlands are already 2-0 up.
Oh, God.
No, then.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So that means basically I've won that game.
Yeah, because I predicted 1-0.
Oh, my God.
You never know. You never know. Maybe it'll
If
be
it
fun.
stays at 2-0, then JJ gets a perfect prediction.
It's one of those games
Kaya's
where
gone for 3-0.
it's one of those games where it will go
I'm not worried
4-0
about that.
before half time, and then they won't score in the second
they won't
half. So
score.
if
What
they don't
about
get
the other? What about Japan-Sweden? Is it 0-0, Ryan? Yeah, it's 0-0. Okay, fine. All right. And then I'm just flicking through to see if Kaya's made any interesting. One other one I will point out is that JJ. I wonder if he did this by accident, but he said that New Zealand were going to beat Belgium 2-1.
I think that's a JJ prediction.
You think that's a JJ
Yeah,
prediction?
because Belgium have been poor, right? So
Yeah.
and New Zealand probably been better than people think.
And JJ is last by a long way.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what he puts down. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay,
I'm the only
fine.
one who's gone for Turkey to get a win against the USA. So I think my boys can do us proud in the final game.
Maybe they can.
I promised the other day, I don't know if we got time for this, tell me if we don't, but
Yeah,
I
go
promised the other day that I would say why I thought Turkey were out so soon.
Yeah,
I can-
go
I
on.
can
Okay,
discuss
go
that
on.
if
Yeah.
we have time.
Let's
Too
do that,
soon.
and that'll
Too
be the
soon.
end of the show. after we've done
Cenk
that.
to soon, right?
Oh, nice. Very good,
Wow.
very good, very
That's
good.
better than Joe's jokes, isn't it?
Save that for the hydration breaks.
Mhm.
So I think there's a kind
And that's all the time we have. No, I'm just kidding, Kai. Go on.
no, there's some simple explanations.
This could be quite a good short clip, by the way. So if you were to start this in a compelling way with a lovely hook, then it's the
Okay.
kind of thing that producer Don might want to clip out.
What's a good hook?
Did you notice?
Like, you know,
Works
a lot
for
of people
me.
expected Turkey to be, dark horses in this tournament. They were really, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe in you.
Yeah. I don't think anyone will be able to predict Turkey as dark horses again going into future tournaments.
Why is that?
Because I think they're a team who, the second things go against them, they're a very emotional team. And sometimes that's a good thing. And it has been a good thing in Euros in the past. For example, when they shocked everyone in Euro 2016 and they beat Austria, the way they did it was kind of like seat of the pants. It was very last minute save, unbelievable saves from the goalkeeper. I think it's Marek Gunok, who has kind of never really been a convincing goalkeeper at any stage during his Turkish international career, but at that point was suddenly pulled out the performance of his lifetime. And when they go 1-0 down, you can tell this by the amount of shots they had from outside the box. I think it was something like more than 50 shots and less than 4 XG, which tells you that they're shooting from distance and they're shooting to try and play hero ball.
Mm-hmm.
And when Turkey tried to play hero ball, inevitably it didn't go right. And against Paraguay, if they just calmed down a bit, if they just managed to find a way to work the space, manipulate the fact they had the extra man, because Paraguay got Almiron sent off, then they definitely would have been able to find a draw, which would have kept them into the competition going into the final game. So they're a team who, and I jokingly said this before, but they're a team who cares too much, and in the worst possible way. And I just think the emotions got the better of them. And for all the talent in that squad, there's some really, really good players in that squad. Arda Güler is going to go on to become, I think, one of the best midfielders in the world at Real Madrid. I think he's a really, really talented player. But until they find a way of just keeping their cool in those high-pressure scenarios, Turkey will always struggle to be the dark horses I think everyone wants them to be.
There you go. Okay, Jon Mackenzie, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Joe.
Kaya, thank you.
Teşekkürler, Joe.
Ryan,
Welcome.
thanks very much. And of course, the producer James and Don, who's outside, thank you. We will be back tomorrow. JJ's on the show tomorrow, isn't he? Yeah, because you're just nodding because you're not here. That's right. JJ's on the show tomorrow. Plus, we have 2 special guests. Ryan will be here as well as me. And the big game tomorrow is, it's Norway-France. Oh, what a scorcher. I hope that will be. Well, until then, farewell, bienvenue, auf Wiedersehen, and tschüss, dear friends. Tschüss, tschüss, tschüss.